Afterwards, I'll let everyone know.
Okay, well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on a Saturday afternoon when the Lions are playing as well, so we really do appreciate the dedication to duty and the theme. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to welcome Tony Bunyan. My name is Mark Kelly. I'm the Director of the Irish Council for Civil Liberties. But before I was Director of the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, I was for years in Strasbourg in the Directorate General of Human Rights. And Tony's bulletin, StateWatch, was one of the most avidly read documents by my colleagues, human rights lawyers there, both where I worked but also in the European Court of Human Rights. And in fact, at the time, it was pre-web days, Tony, and it was available really only in its printed form. And we had something very valuable which we'd had to argue for with the bureaucrats and hatchet-faced accountants that we had in our finance department, which was a subscription, an actual paid-up subscription to StateWatch. So we had the real thing, and it was fought over every time it arrived and circulated avidly and read from cover to cover. So we've never met before, but I know your work, and I've got the deepest respect for your work, and thank you for the fact that you're still doing it after all this time, and I can assure you that it is deeply appreciated. Tony is going to be talking to us today about the shape of things to come. And it's not a very attractive shape, as you'll see from the document and as you will hear. I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said, "He who sacrifices freedom in the name of security shall have neither." And that might perhaps be a pithy way to sum up the sense of what is said in the shape of things to come. But I think there's another message as well, especially for a group like the Irish Council for Civil Liberties and its supporters, which is that we do not want it to be said 10 years from now when people look back at what the EU has done. What did you do about that? Why didn't you notice what was happening at EU level? Why didn't you, as civil liberties organisations and as people concerned about human rights, try to do something about it? So it's not just a lecture, it's not just background information. As far as I'm concerned, as the director of the ICCL, it's a call to action for us as an organisation and to those of our supporters and friends who would share our concerns. So thank you very much and welcome to the club.
Thanks very much. It's nice to see you and nice to be in Dublin again. Just to follow up your point about those early days, that when we recently, 2 years ago, joined what's called the Public Licensing Society, where you get paid million royalties for people's usage of your work, and in the main it would have been our bulletin, which would have been logged, and we were getting initial payments came and weren't much. The next one came and it was like £195 for British universities, £50 from schools, and then £1,300. 58,000 copies made by HM government. And it's one thing one doesn't realise. I mean, the last, not the current head of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, but the previous head, met Anne Singleton, who's one of our trustees now and works with us, in Bristol, and he said, "You're not StateWatch, are you?" He said, "God," he said, "we're so dependent on what you do." And what you don't realise as you're inside that system is that the Foreign Office, because in the EU it's dealing with general affairs, because it's dealing with the whole context, has to know what's happening in Justice Home Affairs. And it doesn't talk to the Home Office. Yes? It doesn't find out the Home Office what's going on, it has to come to StateWatch to find out. It was ironic, we actually got £1,200 from the British government for the work, using our work. I mean, that was the story. When StateWatch started in 1990, we started publishing in March 1991, we made a decision from the very start that we're going to look at the European Union. We started off with, in our what we call a contributors group with 10 people, 8 of whom from the UK and 2 of which were outside the UK. Now we've got about 27 or 30 people, 11 of which are in the UK and 19 of which are outside the UK. And that shows that our instinct was right, that even though we started off as a UK-based group, our instinct was to try and find people, contributors, that's lawyers, academics, activists, people in national parliament, people in the European Parliament, researchers, journalists, who make up our group. I mean, our group's got about 6 or 7 professors, 7 or 8 lawyers, people in parliaments, anti-racist activists. So we're a great mix here, because what we're trying to do is to look not just what's decided in Brussels, but what effect that has on people on the ground. What does it mean to people in Italy and Spain and Germany and Greece? How is that being worked out? So that was our rationale. In the early days, like you pointed out at first era, the only way to get information, and I'm a journalist, was actually to go. And I went to those first from 1990 right through to 2001. I would go to every Justice and Home Affairs Council meeting in Brussels or Luxembourg. I went to Turku, I went to Tampere, because that was the only way to get information. It was to get it from other friendly journalists or friendly press officers from friendly national delegations would slip you things. And it was so bad, you know, there were occasions when I would be in the council with Justice Lipson in Brussels, getting the agendas of meetings and 3 documents and taking them over to the European Parliament Civil Liberties Committee and giving them to copies to the main rapporteurs. And then going back to the United Kingdom and giving them to the chair of the House of Lords European Union Committee, who didn't have the agendas. And if you didn't have the agendas, you wouldn't know the list of documents being discussed. If you didn't know the list of documents being discussed, you couldn't ask for them. And in those days, it was like that. And that is a bit of a backdrop, because obviously when we look at this, we've actually got 3 eras. We've got the Trevi era, which most people have now forgotten about, that's 1976 through to 93, which then bequeathed its acquis to the Maastricht era, 93 to 99, and now we're in the Amsterdam era from 1999 ongoing, which may or may not be replaced by the Lisbon era. And in the JHA field, that means we've had, from 1999 onwards, on top of that came in the idea of the Tampere programme. That was the first programme. This was actually written, we discovered later, actually written by officials in the Council and the Commission, 2 officials in particular, who said, we don't want to talk to the Interior Minister because they might try and change it. We'll just go and meet the Prime Ministers, who of course knew nothing about Justice and Home Affairs. So in fact the Tampere programme was very much written by the officials, full-time officials in the Council and the Commission. The Hague programme was different. The Hague programme wasn't open, it was just agreed. It was actually adopted on Guy Fawkes Night, the 5th of November, in 2004. And now we're into the Stockholm programme, which is going to be the main subject, but I want to talk about the background to that. You see, what are these programmes? The point is there's 60 or 70 very general paragraphs at the end of the day, which you won't comprehend unless you can decode what they mean. So the reason why I wrote The Shape of Things to Come was to give the background to what's actually in the Commission proposal, which is currently out, and what will eventually be adopted by the Council. Because it won't tell you, we're going to exploit the digital tsunami. It won't tell you that. It will say, we've got to make the best use of new technologies. It will always put it in the positive sense of what it wants to do. So this is the background to the processes. There was a futures group set up by the German presidency. It met, it reported last year. The key new thing in it was the digital tsunami, surveillance society. On the 10th of June, the Commission adopted its proposal, based on the Futures Group report. The European Parliament will be consulted, in quotes, which will mean it'll take a point of view, but can be completely ignored. It's not co-decision. And the Council, that is the 27 Prime Ministers, aided by all their officials, can amend the Commission proposal at will, and add to it at will, and they will agree. But that will set in stone, as it were, what the Commission has to put forward over the following 5 years, 2010 to 2014. So to give you a sort of clue about what is in the Futures Group report, but not in the Commission proposal, but I think it's going to come back again, when you get right near the end of the Futures Group report, you suddenly find this extraordinary proposal that the European Union must finally make up its mind, implying that they've been thinking about it for a long time, by the year 2014, to create an EU-US area of cooperation in justice and home affairs. That sounds bland, but hang about a minute. This isn't just the issue-by-issue cooperation currently going on, this is covering the whole of justice and home affairs. This means the decision wouldn't be made in Dublin or London, or indeed even in Brussels, but somewhere mid-Atlantic, in a body where there's no guarantee of getting access to what's going on. And our whole experience of monitoring the EU-US meetings, which we've been doing since 2001, is it's a one-way channel. They're demands on the EU by the USA. So that's one of the things that's been slipped in the Futures Group, isn't in the Commission proposal. We're expecting it's going to come back again. I'm going to try and actually go through some of the background to all this, because what we've got